Good afternoon. The December 1st, 2025 meeting of the Faculty Senate will come to order. The minutes of the November 3rd meeting are attached to today's agenda for review and approval. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. First up today is my report. I'll keep it brief because we have a big agenda today. The Faculty Senate leadership team continues to address a variety of issues to improve faculty life and the overall university experience. We continue to work with various committees and senior university officials to address issues like student accommodation process, pay, faculty retention, the assessment of teaching, and new college and department level promotion and tenure guidelines. Recently, we put a special focus on an update to the faculty constitution, which we'll be dealing with later today on the agenda. And also, of course, we've been highly involved, at least a few of us have been, in the ongoing search for a new WVU provost. And I strongly encourage you, if you can, to continue to take part in the on-campus interviews for provost finalists. The first one, of course, is just preceding this event, which is why it's a few minutes late, or maybe it's a little few minutes late today. And the next three will be on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at various times around 1 to 2 p.m. I'm very appreciative to President Benson for overseeing a search run in this way where we have a transparent process, a great deal of faculty involvement with the committee, and in terms of being able to take part in these open presentations. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, that then means that we're up to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is used to handle routine and non-controversial business, allowing us to approve multiple items of one vote. Today's consent agenda includes annexes 1, 2, and 3 from the curriculum committee, which list programs and courses submitted for approval. Is there any requests to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. So we'll move on to the committee reports. First up is the curriculum committee report from Kate Johnson.
Thank you, Scott. I'm on Zoom, unfortunately. I just wanted to say that we submitted those 3 items to the consent agenda, and besides that, I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Kate? Thank you, Kate. Next up is the General Education Foundations Committee report from Cody Hood.
Thank you, Scott. So as we wrap up this fall semester, we're going to be working on moving on to the next phase of the Jeff expectations that you guys might remember from last year, where we're making sure that all the different areas of the university and that have the Jeff attribute are successfully being supported by us and meeting all those expectations. So the main thing that we'll be working on with that rollout, where we reach out to some of you all, is making sure that as we transition from the LEAP outcomes to the Jeff learning outcomes, you might hear from us over the spring semester to make sure that we have those updates in Chem aligned for each of the classes that do have those attributes. If you would like to volunteer your class, feel free to reach out to me and we can get your course switched over sooner rather than later. But we're just going to be using that as the primary mechanism to essentially begin our auditing process of going through and making sure that all of those expectations are being met. And that's all I have for my report today.
Are there any questions for Cody? Oh, okay. All right. Getting ahead of us, aren't you? Thank you, Cody. Next up is the Teaching and Assessment Committee report from Ashley Sowers.
So the main thing is that the time period to modify your spot ended before Thanksgiving break, and those will start coming. Those reports will start coming to you after grades are due in the next week or so. Look for an email that will walk you through the process. If you feel like one of those comments needs to be redacted from digital measures, there will be the specific process on how to do that.
Any questions for Ashley? All right, thank you. Next up is the Board of Governors Committee report, Board of Governors report from Leslie Cottrell.
Hello. All right. Board of Governors met several weeks ago, and just some highlights from the public consent and minutes, which are posted. And again, I encourage anyone to go to the BOG website, take a look at that, get an idea of what's being discussed. Some of those highlights, just to kind of put a feather in our cap. So the FY25, the internal audit, came back with a very strong positive result, unmodified opinion of the highest level of assurance and accuracy. So that is collectively, our WVU family is getting it done and doing it well. It's always great to have an audit like that. Not everyone gets that, so kudos to everybody. In terms of education, quality, academic programs, and affordability, we talked a little bit about the course material affordability. Where is it? What's been going on? Few stats on that. 83% of courses now offer first day access to learning materials. So thank you very much. 59% of students are receiving course books through this model. So we're seeing some student success, preparedness, and retention as a result of that program, which is always good. And that's going to continue to be monitored over time. Standard consent agenda, kind of like what we do in here, but next steps after us. New programs such as undergraduate certificate in river conservation management, master's in science and plant and soil sciences, master's in arts and strategic organizational communication. Those were approved. Some were discontinued. BS in Health Services Administration in the School of Public Health, for example. Other things that were approved, I know several people are always interested when the county extension appointments get approved. Those were done in the last meeting, as well as some University Police Department resources that were available. Enrollment trends, we're going to get into that a little bit more in our meeting, so I won't take too much time, but we are constantly taking a look at enrollment trends. Seems to be some positive feedbacks, positive information. We also looked at facilities and academic space. So a few updates. I know Potomac State, our Potomac State colleagues are getting some renovation projects and that are much needed for their biology and nursing majors. School of Dentistry demolition is complete. So this is a phase one. These are projects that money has already been allotted for. We've known these are happening. Where are they? Are they on time? Things of that sort. Brook Tower, Cary Gym over near the Coliseum. These also include not only the physical outside structures, but like piping, which are pretty significant and things on our table to discuss, not just last time, but coming up. And then lastly, just some of the things of the strategic planning that you've heard. Those will be ongoing discussions about faculty, staff, student input, next steps under President Benson, as well as the AAU goal that's coming up and how we might take part and contribute to that individually. So with that, that's my report.
Anyone have any questions for Leslie?
Hi, Brian Powell, Statler College. Actually, I guess kind of more of a request than a question per se. I know that the new board chair has indicated that transparency is one of his focuses. It would be really helpful in terms of being able to provide feedback to you and the rest of the board if the board packets could be made available prior to the meetings. University Relations always sends them out right after the meeting, but at that point in time, it's difficult to be able to provide any feedback on that. And the agenda is so vaguely worded most of the time that you can't really make heads or tails. So if the board packets could be publicly posted prior to the meeting, that would give people time to actually review what's there and provide input on that for the board.
I'll run it up.
Thank you.
Joe Jones, College of Creative Arts and Media. Let the record show I like your hair. It's great. I haven't seen you in a while. I did have a question about this internal audit. So what was that? Like, is it like they were looking at faculty? Were they looking at our budget? Like, what was the internal audit actually looking at?
I think that I'll defer, but this is an overall fiscal, right? The overall status of the university, where we are in terms of our requesting loans, funding. Provost Kreider, if I'm speaking out of turn, please add to it. But it's the overall picture. It's not just faculty, not just one particular component, but the overall picture. quality for cost, that kind of thing. Our loans, our standing, our credit, all of that's mixed.
But like no more academic transformation, like basically just looked at kind of what was going on, saying we're doing okay right now financially.
The two need to be separated. The no academic transformation, I mean, that's a separate piece, but in terms of those elements, we're doing fine. And we were doing fine previously on that piece.
Further questions for Leslie? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is a report from our faculty representative state government, Jason Gross.
Thank you, Scott. I guess since the last faculty senate meeting, there's been several meetings, so I had an opportunity to go and participate in the legislative interims and PipeStem in November. Now the December interims are coming up next week. Hope the opportunity to learn more about potential legislation that could impact higher education. In the first week of November, we had the statewide meeting of the Advisory Council on Faculty. So this was an opportunity to meet with all of the other representatives from different higher education in four-year and community and technical college institutions. At the meeting, we invited Senator Mike Oliverio to come give an update to us. And he encouraged, in general, higher education to be more proactive and find opportunities to invite legislatures to our campuses. I think that's something that we do pretty good here, but said, we can't come and interact if we're not invited. So I just want to report that as a positive. We also had Dan Campbell from our state government relations come and speak to us and give us advice. I will say that the issue about faculty not having a vote on boards of governors was an issue that was brought up by many people, but I would say the general consensus was we know that issue is not going to change, at least in this current year with the same legislature. Some of the issues that were talked about in the general meeting amongst faculty, we also had an update from HEPC, and most of that focus was on a bill that was to come into compliance with making West Virginia as one in the lower quartile of states and students being able to transfer within state institutions. So there's a common course numbering project that's going on where the idea is to make it mobility between institutions in the state easier and try to make the most amount of college credits count towards a degree at different institutions within the state. A lot of the issues that came up with other faculty focused on online learning and assessment and the age of AI, issues with dual high school enrollment programs at different universities. I just want to say that as we approach the legislative session, Scott mentioned we are going to try to get Travis hopefully on the agenda for a faculty senate meeting. I think there is a need for us to be proactive to the extent possible, but we don't know what's going to come up or grow legs until the session actually starts. So I guess until then, there's rumors, but I don't want to speak about what might or might not happen since there's so many bills that could get passed. So hopefully we'll have more information as we approach the session, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jason? All right, thank you. Next up, we move on to the guest report, starting with President Benson.
Well, thank you, Scott, and good afternoon, everybody. Just a point of clarification about the audit. Leslie did use the phrase internal audit. We have an internal auditor, but this is our annual external audit that's conducted by an outside accounting firm. And that firm is CLA, Clifton Larson and Allen, and it's all on our website. So if you want to go back and look at the November report, it's all archived and you can go through the whole thing. And it's riveting reading. So the most important thing is that Barb Weiss in her report said that the university has all the resources necessary for its current obligations. So that's the internal component, but it's an external review done by a firm. And Leslie did a very good job summarizing that. I use this at Thanksgiving time, a quote from Cicero, which I don't think is quoted very often, but gratitude is not only the greatest of all virtues, but the parent of all others. And I'm very grateful for the faculty here. Scott and Leslie both mentioned kind of the process that we're beginning, and we'll, I think at a later date, ask if we can do a more full-blown report on what we intend to do with our AAU process. But it is a very faculty-centric examination of where you are as an institution, not only in terms of the publications that you all have produced over the last 10 years, and I've looked at that list, and it's impressive. Can we do better? Absolutely, we can do better. But it also looks at the journals where you published, the citations for you, members of the academies among our faculty, and so forth. So as we go through this process, you'll see that this is a very rigorous, arduous, demanding process, but it all starts with the faculty. So in the wake of Thanksgiving, I want to thank you for what you do, because what you do makes a difference. And the university is only as good as its faculty. So I really appreciate the work you do on a daily basis. Looking forward to tomorrow and the lighting of Woodburn. I hope the skiff of snow that we're expecting stops about 5 o'clock. But I hope that you'll come out with your family and friends and join us at 6 o'clock. It starts, and we'll flip the switch at 6:30. I hope you can finish the semester strong. I'm looking forward to my first West Virginia University commencement on the 20th of December and being with our graduates. Jason did mention legislative priorities that we had a chance to cover with legislators at Pipestem. I won't go into the details because it's very fluid, and we're keeping a close eye on boxcar bills and what's getting filed and so forth. But we do have a capital request. We do have a request to make sure the funding formula keeps up with inflation, because it's an important component of what we do and how we get our allocation from the state. So you'll hear more about that as the gavel drops in January. Been to 34 or 55 counties. Next week, I'll make it to my 35th county, Nicholas County. And I mentioned that because the weather's starting to get a little colder. The roads are, will, I'm sure in due time, become impassable in some parts of the state. So we're going to pivot, and I'm going to start visiting high schools. So especially around Charleston when I'm down there, I've already been to several high schools, and my message is always the same. Do something beyond high school, whether it's a trade or a certificate or a diploma, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree. Our hope and our aspiration is that every willing West Virginia student will come to WVU, either at our Beckley campus or Kaiser or here. But I'm imploring these students that are juniors and seniors in high school, make sure you plan for something. I hope that's a message that's resonating with the groups that I have a chance to meet with. You may have heard we pledged during the process of doing the strategic plan an innovation fund that we want to grow over time and get more donations, but we had our first $50,000 gift to that fund, kind of a seed gift from Rick Wagner. We're very grateful to him. And you'll hear more about that as the implementation teams begin their work. Speaking of which, they've all been appointed, the heads of those teams. There are 6 of them, I believe. And you'll hear more reports from that process. I certainly am grateful for the feedback that we've received on the strategic plan as we go to the next steps. Scott did mention the search processes, and I don't want to take any thunder from Diana because I know she's going to report on where we are. But today was my first interview with our first of 4 finalists, Jen Roberts from the University of Kansas, or KU as they say. Really enjoyed our conversation, but we are releasing the names and the CVs the day before out of respect for their current positions because, well, all of them are employed, and we want to make sure that we're respectful of that. And some have asked, are you going to broadcast? We will broadcast on campus the stream from their sessions, but they will not be recorded. So if you have a WU email, you can have access to that, but you can appreciate you don't want that getting kind of spread out, or having a candidate watch the previous candidates and maybe take cues from it. I had also my first interview with one of our finalists for the law school. We have several dean searches going on right now. And Stephanie Taylor, who is helping chair the CFO search, had a whole battery of interviews today, and we're moving forward with that. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to take any questions, but it's an exciting time. Leslie mentioned the board of governors. We have a couple different issues that we're dealing with now that we'll take up also at our December 19th meeting, which is a Zoom. It's traditionally a Zoom meeting the day before graduation, and people are welcome to join that webinar. Any questions at all? All right. Thank you all very much.
All right, next up is a report from Interim Provost Paul Kreider.
Good afternoon. I have some highlights to mention and a few announcements. So I wanted to mention that the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative, along with the Claude Benedum Foundation, are continuing their efforts to support teachers across the Mountain State who create innovative learning experiences for their students. Through competitive mini grants, the West Virginia Teacher Innovation Program will support some of the state's most creative classroom teachers by providing up to $4,000 to fund a multidisciplinary learning project. After receiving 208 applications last year from across the state, a team of education experts selected 29 unique projects to pilot during the 25-26 academic year. The Claude Benedum Foundation has contributed nearly $160,000 in the past since 2023 for this program. And this year, the West Virginia University Health Sciences is funding an extra $20,000 for the program. And this will support classroom education across the state. And much of that is helped facilitated by WVU faculty. So we're excited about this year's recipients, and we look forward to more information about that in the spring. I wanted to also mention that the HISTA program is highlighted, and one of our successful School of Medicine professors, Dr. Nicholas Baker, who is a McDowell County native and a WVU alum, is a proud HISTA alum and member of our faculty. As a teenager, Dr. Baker joined the HISTA program, the Health Sciences and Technology Academy, if you're not aware of the acronym, a statewide mentoring program that supports high school students interested in science, engineering, mathematics, and medicine. And they spent a portion of a summer on our Morgantown campus. He set his sights on WVU medicine, where he earned a medical degree before pursuing advanced training in Charleston, Pittsburgh, and New York City. Last year, Dr. Baker returned to West Virginia and to WVU Heart and Vascular Institute, specializing in minimally invasive lung and esophageal cancer surgery. He has also reconnected with the HISTA program, looking to inspire students from small towns and rural communities to dream big and consider WVU. I wanted to also mention an e-news story that highlights a faculty member from the Lane Department of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering. Teaching Associate Professor Mohammed Hefieda is a native of Alexandria, Egypt, who joined the WVU faculty 5 years ago, where he teaches computer engineering courses and conducts research in the areas of cyber physical systems and sensor networks. Most of his research is conducted in the Clinical Infrastructure Security Lab, which is a replica of the PRT and Evansdale area of campus that is used as a test bed to give students real-world experience in industrial automation, machine learning, and cyber security. The model mimics the current system while integrating smart manufacturing and clean energy technologies to help students develop secure solutions for crucial infrastructure. Professor Hefieda says he fell in love with WVU and Morgantown community, and the most rewarding aspect of his job is building lasting connections with students. So you'll be able to see in the future faculty stories like Professor Hefeda's featured each month in the new revamped e-news. And if you'd like to nominate a colleague to be featured in e-news, you can do that by sending an email to enews@mail.wvu.edu. So President Benson mentioned our dean searches. We have the library's dean's profile is online and applications are open. They've noted that January 2nd is the application date for best consideration. And the profile for the Eberly Dean search will be is almost complete, should be online here the next week or so. And as President mentioned, we have candidates on campus this week for the College of Law search. And I had the pleasure of interviewing one of the candidates today. There'll be one on campus Wednesday, one on campus Thursday, and one more on Monday, December 8th. Upcoming events. The Hour of AI, the Center for Excellence in STEM Education and Code West Virginia are hosting their free Hour of AI workshop on Friday, December 5th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in Whitehall, room 103. Code West Virginia's professional staff and lead engaging demonstrations of AI activities for students of all ages. The activities are provided by code.org, which hosts a library of self-paced coding courses, games, and animations for educators. For more information, you can email Code West Virginia or codewv@mail.wvu.edu. So the annual Nicholas Evans Award Committee is taking nominations for the Excellence in Advising Award, named after Nicholas Evans. This award recognizes exceptional advising and mentoring provided by both faculty and professional advisors at WVU. The nomination deadline is this week, December 5th. So details about the award and nomination processes are available at academicadvising.wvu.edu. The Fall Undergraduate Research Symposium is Saturday, December 6th in the Mountain Lair ballrooms. It starts at 1 p.m. and goes until 5 p.m. There are 86 poster presentations and several oral presentations. The poster sessions begin at 1 p.m. and the oral presentations begin at 3 p.m. Hope you can make it to that. So the winter intercession begins on December 22nd, and there'll be a deadline for students to register, and that deadline is Thursday, December 18. So please inform any students that might be interested in winter intercession to get more information at winter.wvu.edu. Spot training was mentioned earlier. The Advanced Center is offering another spot-related session at the end of the semester to help faculty members contextualize their spot results and develop materials for their online review file. The session is on December 22nd, 1:30 to 3 p.m. You can find the link to register at advance.wvu.edu. And finally, I wanted to mention that we're still accepting applications for the faculty ombuds position. If you are interested, please contact Chris Staples in the Provost's office for more information. And that is my report. Are there any questions for me? I guess Brian's got one. Hey, Brian.
Brian Powell, Statler College. So I had a question here that I'm hoping you can provide a little bit of context on. And it deals with the contract for the new Washington Center director. I understand that per state code that he has authority over the budget in consultation with you and with the president. In his contract, that's what state code says. That was the language I saw there.
He's basically responsible for that budget, and he
Okay.
dictates how it's spent.
Okay, because
Yep.
that gets to my question because,
Yep.
you know, looking at his contract, aside from setting his own salary, he's guaranteed himself at least a 10% annual raise and a 10% performance bonus based on evaluation from the advisory committee where he picks all the initial members. That doesn't seem like best practice, and I'm not familiar with the university in faculty contracts giving annual bonuses or annual guaranteed raises. Did he dictate those terms himself, or where did those come from?
I can't answer that question, but I can tell you this, that his contract is contingent upon the legislature choosing to continue funding the Washington Center. And then I can tell you that the contract negotiations for Dr. Miller's contract were handled solely by the governor's office in conjunction with his general counsel or his legal representation and the general counsel of WVU. So there were no academics involved in negotiation of that contract.
Okay. All right, that pretty much answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Interim Provost Kreider. Next up, we have a report from Vice President Maria Barge.
Good afternoon. Nice to see everybody. It's my first time coming and seeing you. Some of the faces are people that I've seen before, some are not. So I look forward to getting to know those that I do not know. I wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit about our focused salary adjustment program. A lot of information back here, you all can read. I think the thing that I want to really touch on is that our program is really intended to provide an opportunity for a limited salary adjustment for some employees that have gone the longest period without having a salary adjustment. That ends up being about half of our workforce that have gone a very long time without getting a salary adjustment. And as a result of that, those are the ones that we have identified as being eligible for the salary adjustment. With the implementation of this program, the university is reaffirming its dedication to fostering a workforce and a workplace that recognizes the valuable contributions of our faculty and staff while operating within the limits of available funding, which has been significantly helped and possible by our improved enrollment this fall. Now, some people have asked me, why isn't this a merit program? Why isn't this a performance-based program? And part of it has to do with funding. And so when you have limited funding, you have to then consider how do you maximize the value for that salary adjustment program. So as a result of that, we had to look at a number of different things. But I want to start by saying this is not a merit or a performance-based program. I also think it's important to touch on that we as a institution, next page here. All right. When we looked at the program, when we looked at eligibility, one of the things we did was we partnered across our institution with senior leadership, which includes our deans, to really assess where we could have the greatest impact from maximizing the value that's available based on the eligible population. When we go back to that intent, which is make sure that we are impacting those who've gone the longest period of time without an increase. In doing that, we wanted to make sure that we maintained flexibility for our leaders with regard to their ability to make decisions and that we maximize the value for our employees. There was a large percentage of employees that when we looked at this, who not only had not experienced a salary increase, but were right alongside others who maybe did receive a salary increase. So when we looked at this population, we had to assess what would be the impact if we expanded the population beyond those who have not received a salary increase. And what we determined is that those individuals would actually end up bringing down the value that's being provided to those who were intended to receive the salary increase. So as we move forward in putting our program together, we arrived at who we identified as being eligible for the program. As you can see here, we have individuals who have not received an increase since July 1 of 2024 through September 30th of 2025, as well as individuals who have been hired before July 1 of 2024. So if folks fall outside of that, they therefore would not be eligible. We also have some expectations around ensuring that people have an overall rating higher than unsatisfactory or development needed in making those determinations as well. So when we consider those who are not eligible, that ends up being individuals who've received increases within that time period. So as we had our conversations and looked at this, we had some folks, say, hey, I took on opportunity during that time period. Maybe I received an additional increase. Maybe I've taken on an interim role. Maybe I've received promotion. Maybe I've had my promotion and tenure come up. Does that mean I'm not going to be eligible? And the answer is yes. Those individuals are not eligible because they have received an increase during that time period. The individuals who are eligible haven't received anything. And so that was where, unfortunately, we had to make those decisions. Come on, here we go. So as we look towards finalizing the program, finalizing the decisions, month of November was the planning time. This week is finalizing the submissions that have come through from leadership. And starting next week will be discussions with individuals who are receiving increases. The increases will take effect on December 14th, and then the first pay that they will be seeing will be the beginning of January, that first week in January. When we put this program together, we knew that it would raise some concerns, and we knew that it would leave some questioning our decisions. The intent today is to provide insight, answer your questions to the best of my ability, and give you some perspective on what went into what was put together. So I'm gonna stop talking, see if there's any questions.
Yeah, good afternoon, Eugenia Pena-Jeffrey, Davis College.
Good
I
afternoon.
just, how are you?
Good.
I just have a kind of a quick, maybe, just to try to understand a little bit more.
Sure.
Did you include it in the people that actually will not receive a salary increase? Those who temporary were filling a position like a directorship, a short. So those people are not going to receive, even though today maybe it's the last day for their directorship? Thank you.
So the answer to that is yes. And what we've done though, when we put the program together, and this was a particular concern that came up when we were talking to the deans. How do we deal with this? How do we handle this? And one of the things that we discussed is for them to assess their budgets and where they have the ability to make other decisions to supplement something of that nature. And so that is one of the things that we discussed with them, and several of them are looking at that at this time. So that's a very good call out because that's something that we did talk about.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Hi there, Catherine Fonseca, WVU Libraries.
Hello.
I know our dean at the libraries has mentioned that she'll be taking salary compression into consideration when doling out amounts. Could you give any sort of information about guidance that you were giving leadership around that particular issue, salary
Around
compression?
compression or?
Yes.
So the best way I can answer the compression question is that when leaders are looking at their teams, so if we just focus on eligible employees, let's say we have like 4 eligible employees, the leader has a budget that's allocated based on the number of individuals that they have. They can assess the compression opportunities that can be addressed through this, but that's likely not going to be resolved through this program. So as a result of that, there are other budgetary avenues that leaders can use to look at that and to address those challenges as well. But this program is not intended to address compression overall. But good question. Thank you.
Lauren Weatherford, WVU Extension. In the various factors that get you to somebody not being eligible for
Yes.
this, is there been any allowance for deans or leaders to have an appeals process for somebody that they feel like should be that has been excluded?
So that's a really good question. We talked about that as an avenue, and one of the challenges that we had, because the funding was limited, was that we wanted to stay true to the intent of the program. In those circumstances where I had deans who had that as a real concern, we spent pretty extensive time looking at their budget and considering what other options they have to be able to address any challenges they have for individuals who are not eligible under the program. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but that was something that was looked at and is actively being looked at by a number of deans across the institution. So good question. Thank you.
Hi, Brian Powell, Statler College. So
Hey.
you've indicated this is not a merit or performance-based raise, but then you also said that this was in part to help address salary compression issues. What exactly are we talking about in terms of raises people are getting? Are they fixed dollar amounts? Are they percentages? Do they vary? What sort of numbers are we actually looking at?
So I can't speak to the numbers. What I can tell you is that there's been budgets that have been allocated to leaders based on the parameters that I've referenced, which is whether individuals have received a salary increase since July 1 of 2024. Based on that, a particular school may have 30 people, 40 people, 50 people. Based on the overall budget that we have, then dollars are allocated for each of those schools, and then the leader looks at that and then makes those decisions thereafter. Again, we wanted to put maximum flexibility in the hands of our leaders to make the decisions that they feel are best based on the budgets that they have.
Okay, so how were the dollars allocated to the individual colleges?
We took the budgeted money that was laid out, which is $5.9 million, and we divided it amongst the schools based on the number of employees.
So
were
each
eligible.
school was given a fixed dollar amount based on its headcount of eligible employees?
Yes, it was allocated to the individual schools based on the employees that are available based on the eligibility.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Megan Lake, College of Creative Arts and Media. So it's feeling like there is some merit kind of questions in here, because if you're allowing chair people to decide if people are getting raises, presumably there is a piece of this that's not objective. Is that a fair statement?
I think that the desire that we had was to make sure that our leaders had the ability to have the flexibility to make the decisions that they felt were appropriate. I didn't want to be overly prescriptive with our leaders with regard to that, and that was a pretty strong request of our deans to be able to do that. I would not say it's a performance or merit-based program, because that would include everyone across the institution. It wouldn't be fixed on a subset of employees based on parameters like we define. But I can understand why you would have that.
Well, I think the follow-up to that is, if we've identified ourselves as eligible based on this criteria, but do not get a raise, what's the rationale for not getting a raise?
Sure. So the best answer I can give you is that with maximum flexibility comes maximum accountability. So if a leader makes decisions with regard to what they're going to do for the eligible population, they choose to give one person something and there's a question, the leader is prepared to be able to have those conversations with the individual, regardless of whatever the amount is.
Okay.
So, good question.
I know I'm on this side. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've been looking over here. Chris Latuma, Davis College, VAG. Hi. Yeah, so I think what you're hearing from us is, first of all, it's a good thing, so thank you. But secondly, I think probably what you're going to hear a little bit about is a lack of trust in some colleges.
Sure.
And so that's where some of these concerns are coming from, and that we'd like to have some transparency, and then also make sure that that accountability is something that happens. So let me just get that out of the way. But then secondly, so I'm sure you came across this, you could run into the situation where, of course, you might be a faculty member who just achieved tenure, who you said no longer qualifies for this. And so you no longer get that raise. You could be on that side of the fence, or you could be somebody who is going to get the raise and then cross the fence to tenure and get a second raise. How did you're nodding.
That's true.
But
You're
how
absolutely
do you
right. You're
account
absolutely right.
for that component of this?
So unfortunately, we had to pick a point in time where you define your population.
You might end up having faculty who are very comparable in rank, but one who's gotten an extra raise and one who didn't, only because they achieved their extra rank in the previous year.
Potentially, that could happen. You could have someone who goes through promotion and tenure in January. You could have someone who goes through promotion and tenure next March, next April.
Yep.
Under this program, they would get this, and then they would get that. So that is absolutely true. Now, one of the things that we've discussed with the deans, so I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I don't mean to, but one of the things that we've discussed with the deans is looking at their budgets to assess where they have the opportunity to address things like you're describing. So we had these discussions with our deans going back in September. And part of the discussion was, let's think about this moving forward to plan and be proactive to understand where we could have some of these challenges so that those types of choices can be made. And that's one of the things that is an option for them to consider.
Again, I want to say we all would all appreciate it, but we just want it to be equitable and transparent as possible. And the history, I think, makes that a challenge in some places, right?
No, I respect what you said, and I appreciate it. You know, we've done focus groups. My organization did a focus group initiative April through May, and we had really good feedback that came through from folks here as well as folks elsewhere. I don't know if you were in here, but I'm just saying faculty members. That was very helpful for us. It was very helpful because it gave us a baseline of understanding, and trust was one of the concerns that came through. And the only way to really work through trust is to continue to move forward and have opportunities to make a different decision that builds that trust. And that's what we're doing. And that's what today is about as well. So I appreciate the question. Thank you. And your comments.
I have Brian Powell. I have a follow-up.
Brian, or?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it for me? Hi, Jesse Oquin, Potomac State College. There have been meetings I've been a part of that have been equating promotion and tenure with, or like promotion with getting a raise. But I know some people at Potomac State were hired as instructors, so they got promoted but didn't get a raise. So I was wondering if you could clarify if they are in fact the same thing, or if it's only raises.
It's only associated with a salary increase. So if someone maybe got a promotion and didn't get a salary increase, that would not impact them. It has to do with whether their salary has gone up because of an increase during the time periods.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Sure, no problem.
Brian Powell. So I guess I wanted to probe a little bit more on the salary compression issue.
Okay.
Because I know there's cases within my college where there was some pronounced salary compression with existing faculty being paid less than we were bringing in new people at the same rank. And those faculty were told that, well, that would be addressed when they had promotion and tenure come up. And then the college gave the statutory minimum 10% pay raise at promotion and tenure time, and we're told that's all we can afford. So now effectively we've had these faculty who were making less than the people at the same tier where they were hiring in, making just slightly more than people a rank lower. And your plan has excluded them from pay raises. So what would you suggest to a faculty member in that situation?
Well, I mean, you know, there's a couple things in there, so I'll kind of take it one at a time. So, you know, first I would say this is our program as an institution. This isn't Mario's plan. But that being said, I think that it's a plan that is intended for us to maximize the value for those who haven't received anything here at the institution, which is virtually half of our workforce. And so that's really the intent. Now, when we get into compression and dealing with compression challenges, again, there are other budgetary options that a leader has to be able to address that. I'd say as a faculty member, I would say be persistent with your leadership with regard to your compensation considerations and your questions. And that would be my advice to you, because we have other aspects that we've discussed with our leadership, our leaders, our deans, what have you, with regard to these types of things.
Okay. If the body will indulge me, I did have a follow-up from my earlier question. Do you have what the dollar amount was per eligible employee that was allocated to the colleges?
I do not have that.
Can you get
dollar
that?
amount, I'm sorry. That's not something that I have access to at this time, but I'm sure we could probably provide that at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Miriam Leary,
Yeah.
School of Medicine. Other institutions do more of like an annual standard percent raise, 2 or 3%.
Sure.
With all of the questions that are coming out about equity, was that considered? Because with the cost of inflation over the last 7 years, I think universally, that would have been really well received. So was that considered?
So it was considered. Unfortunately, programs like that would require a budget that is significantly higher than the budget that we had for this program. So doing that type of a across the board 2 to 3% increase would have resulted in a much higher budgetary impact, which is not something we were able to do at this
Sure,
time.
but with money that is allocated, it could be equally distributed, even if it's less than 2%.
I understand what you're saying, and I
Right, so
think
was that like the equitable distribution?
so that was part of the conversation and the discussion that we had. I mean, Provost Kreider and I were in discussions not only with leadership, but also with our deans around this. And there was a desire for them to have maximum flexibility with regard to those choices that they would make. So that
could-
was something that we wanted to do more
Right,
from the
so-
standpoint for
so-
flexibility versus a across the board
Sure.
percentage.
Yeah, so with maximal flexibility, are the deans able to decide whether they want to equitably allocate those funds across all of their staff and faculty?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely they are.
So the criteria that you gave us today, a dean could choose to ignore those criteria and equitably allocate to all of their faculty and staff?
So the criteria we gave were guidelines that deans can use as examples, but they have the ability to make other decisions as well. Sure, no problem. Other questions? Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Vice President Barge. Next up is Sarah McCorkle, the Director of the Teaching and Learning Center.
Hello, Sarah McCorkle, Teaching and Learning Center. Here to share a little bit more with you about our conference, the Scholarly Teaching Conference at West Virginia University, which will be May 13th and 14th. So tomorrow I'll be hosting an information session where I'm going to go over the proposal process, our templates that we have available, and just answer any questions that folks may have. And that's going to be the first of several opportunities of this kind that will extend through the proposal process. The proposals would be due on January 31st. And I also will take individual consultations as well if anyone has any questions. So the link to the Zoom session for tomorrow at noon can be found in the email that you received earlier today from the Teaching and Learning Center. So the conference will have 2 tracks. Track 1 will be effective teaching practices, and track 2 will be research on teaching. The call for proposals, as I mentioned, closes on January 31st. And we have worked it out where the templates will double as a conference paper. So that's all formatted for you. So the proposals will be peer reviewed, and then the accepted proposals will be published in the conference proceedings with support from WVU libraries. And that will be open source scholarship that's available that can be cited and indexed as well. So I'm happy to take any questions now, but I will be available at noon tomorrow on Zoom. Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to Senate business. First thing on the agenda, we're not actually going to do because it's a report on the provost search. And the search committee is meeting right now with the first provost candidate, so Diana cannot be here to report. I would remind you that, again, like we do have the opportunity for the events. Again, they're all between 1 and 2 o'clock, basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, both Zoom and in person at the Gluck Theater. The exact time does vary by day, so be careful about which day. Tomorrow starts at 1:15. So I very much encourage you all to take part in those events if you can. If you do take part, there will be either virtually or in the Gluck Theater, you will get an email for a kind of response survey to fill out. So they are collecting information from the faculty who take part in these things that will have an effect on the recommendation that the search committee later provides. Moving on to the next bit of business. the proposed revisions to the faculty constitution. Okay, so this is going to take me a second, but I want to make sure I kind of cover things. Indulge me. WVU faced a number of challenges in the last 5 years or so, aggregating and raising up faculty voice from a wide variety of situations, whether it's tied to transformation, tied to COVID. A lot happened. And as we observed under the constitution we had, sometimes that constitution created various challenges in terms of how to kind of work together as a group. And so about 2 years ago, an initiative was started by the leadership team back then to start to change, to work on a constitution change that would be more workable for the faculty essentially, and try to kind of encourage shared governance activity, but also push it in a way where we're not having to worry about quorums all the time, not trying to meet, in person all the time when we have Zooms now versus like 20 years ago, that sort of thing. So basically how this all started again was about 2 years ago. And so I want to stress that this proposed change is not the product of any one person or even like one group. Started about 2 years ago under leadership group at that time. Then under the last academic year, when Diana was Senate chair, it was sat with the shared governance committee who went month by month through different parts of the Constitution, changing back some things the first group had changed, making other alterations that are like new ideas. And then like many groups, like looking at a 30-page document, decided, hey, we're stuck on this. So then we had another group take up that part. And all back and forth, one kind of constant throughout was that the Senate Exec Committee, which is elected by the entirety of WVU faculty, was in charge of kind of moving this conversation around group to group, from the first group to the second group to the third group, and kind of keeping an eye on where things stood. And so what we've eventually kind of gotten to across the last 2 years is an update intended to be something that encourages greater use of the Senate, a more effective use of the Assembly, and more broadly kind of creates a point of view about valuing shared governance all throughout the institution. And so strengthening language in the Constitution that would allow for colleges, departments, et cetera, to push things more in a kind of shared governance direction, but at the same time, not trying to do it in a universal one-size-fits-all kind of way, because hey, the School of Medicine and Beckley and Davis, et cetera, are different institutions, and there's not going to be one perfect way for it all. So that's the basic idea. Kind of the underlying themes again were to try and encourage Senate, because I know sometimes some of y'all get frustrated, like we don't really do anything in Senate. So try to put more things to kind of encourage action. I think we do, but I know sometimes you want to do a bit more. To kind of get away from having to be worried about for the assemblies, like quorum votes and things like that, especially as a result of transformation, more and more of the faculty is health sciences based. I'm extremely well aware of the fact that that makes it even harder to kind of maintain during the day meeting quorum situations. So we're trying to kind of update things and also take advantage of new technologies and things like that. And so kind of those were the ideas that underlay all this. Corey, sent a document around a couple times, sort of showing where changes have been made. Obviously, not everything's been changed. We just were changing things that we thought needed to be changed, and or if we're changing things, it's an opportunity to do little things. And so kind of that's all a kind of key thing. But the one other kind of big thing that might have kind of slipped through the cracks that I really want to stress, because this is something that's come up a lot in a whole variety of contexts over the last 5 years, part of this whole deal, is that we wanted to make sure that we were creating avenues for faculty voice and action, but also at the same time maintaining the fact that we are one faculty and trying to kind of, in all cases, make the Senate and the rest of these kinds of efforts inclusive of all the different types of faculty that we have across all the campuses, all the schools, that sort of thing. So we purposely kind of had that eye as we went through this to make sure that it's not going to be simply a document designed for one portion of the faculty, but for the entirety of the faculty of the institution. So that's all that has happened in the past. Again, you've been sent the document multiple times. In order for debate on the document, this is of course, whatever Senate does one way or the other, it's just one stage in the process. If the Senate does approve this document, it would then go to a faculty assembly early 2026, where then there would be a discussion in the assembly about that. And then it would require a 2/3 vote of the assembly to be passed. So this is just one more step in the process of getting this out, to a larger set of the faculty. But keeping that in mind, to have debate on these changes that have been done by Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, and then approved by Senate Exec to be moved to this body, we have to have a motion to approve the document and then a second to that motion. Of course, that does not mean that we will vote necessarily right then. That just, we have to have that to have debate to start. So can I have a motion to approve and a second, please? Thank you, Scott. Okay. Oh, several people. Thank you all. Okay. Moved and seconded, third and fourth and fifth. Great. So is there any debate on the document? Okay. Eric, are you? Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Well, all right then. Not what I was anticipating. Not what I was anticipating, but hey, okay. Well, the motion's been moved and seconded, and third, fourth, fifth. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, well, that was much more efficiently achieved than I was anticipating for today. But I also would sort of say, like, again, for all of y'all, because again, like the thing is, like, this has taken a long time, and lots of you all, have been part of this effort. And people who no longer even like work at WVU have been part of this effort. And so I really appreciate everything that's gone into this. Again, this is just part of the process. There was going to be an assembly probably sometime in January. I'm not going to bug the faculty before the holidays about this. But we'll send that out once that gets scheduled later on in the spring term. Okay, new business. I thought you were gonna have some.
One that's not here, right? No. Okay. All right, I actually have a different question first. I don't actually know who this goes to. Megan Light, College of Creative Arts and Media. Where do midterm grades get reported to? Like, they go to the students, but like, is anybody alerted when students are doing poorly?
This is not the job of the person who happens to be in the room, but Valerie, could you tell us that, please? I very much appreciate the fact that the Academic Affairs Associate Dean of Public College is here today to answer this question, because I do not know that.
Valerie Lastinger, Eberly College. So it depends on how your college handles mid-semester grades. Typically what we do in our college is that the grades are sent to the advisors, and then the advisors alert the students. Typically, if they have more than one mid-semester report, that is a D or an F, and then they can start advising the students, which is the purpose of the mid-semester grade, is to alert students that they may not be doing so well in one or more of their classes, and do they want to reconsider their majors? Do they want to contact a professor as to how they can improve their grade for the second half of the semester? Is it a lost cause? So they are meant to go to the advisor of the students so that the student can be alerted that things are not going so well.
Okay, thank you. This is very random, obviously, but there were questions in our college about whether or not those alerts that you issue and Navigate, like who those go to, and then whether or not midterm grades actually get reported to advisors in all colleges. And I think the short answer is perhaps they do not. So anyway, that was helpful. Thank you, Valerie. I think the announcement we were planning on, Corey, is this the IT one we were supposed to be talking about? I mean, it's sort of over now. I don't know. So the short answer is, if you didn't take that cyber training and you didn't take it last year, and you probably got notified of this, you now have to change your password like every 45 days. And that would have been more helpful at the last meeting, but you got a lot of scary emails. So I'm really hoping everyone in this room did that. And if you didn't, I think there might still be time. I don't know, actually, if you can log on and do. Yes. Right. It's so if you didn't do it last year too, you're also then not going to be able to use the VPN, which is the more serious issue generally because so many of us work in lots of different places. So, that's it. That was my whole announcement. So, yay.
Thank you, Megan. Daniel.
Daniel Brewster, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. I don't want to. Don't know what I wanted to start with. I don't want to spend a lot of time what's going on at the University of Oklahoma in the past week, but a graduate student was targeted by a prolific student organization that's in many universities. 9 years ago today, actually, I was targeted by a right-wing provocateur who came to our campus, turned my life upside down, had police escorts. I received hundreds of death threats, harassing messages. I'm not sure I've really ever recovered in the last 9 years from that, but I think I bring it to Senate because Oklahoma did what I fear we would do, is capitulate to right-wing organizations who have very vast presences on social media. I teach 2 classes next semester. Both of them are essentially electives, except for one of them is a Speak Right course in a department that only has 2 Speak Right courses, and so or 3. We have 3 Speak Right courses. But I implore faculty senate. I think we need to be more proactive in assuring there are protections in place for faculty and probably graduate students even more so, who are much more vulnerable in a lot of instances. This situation that's going on right now at Oklahoma, the instructor gave a very clear prompt. The student failed to adhere to that prompt at all. The instructor gave very extensive feedback that spoke to the prompt. And as of yesterday, the instructor was put on administrative leave, and the student was assured that they would receive no adverse effects to their grade. And so I think that, and a lot of people believe that these are sometimes plants. For instance, we've had something similar to this happen on our campus this semester alone, where a student refused to do an assignment because they objected to a theory that was the focus of the assignment. In the syllabi for the course, in the course objectives, in the online presentation of what the course was, all of these factors were in place. So this was a gender issue at Oklahoma. I think, like many of us who teach these controversial topics, are very worried about the next 3 years, and just kind of I hope that the provost would still be here at this point, because I don't think we do things like this proactively here. I think everything is reactive, and especially in a lot of these instances, many of us don't necessarily feel like we trust, a lot of the leadership. And so I think there's just a major concern moving forward what the next 2.5 years are going to look like for many people.
It's probably not exactly my place to say anything, but since the provost had to leave to go meet with the first finalist to be the new provost. That's why he left early today. We've had some conversations tied to matters that have been brought up before in the last month or so. I would say, especially for the faculty welfare committee, et cetera, to other groups like that to push forward those conversations further. I know currently the position of the administration seems to be that this is dealt with on a kind of case-by-case basis, as far as I'm aware. And so I would say if something like this comes up, do contact Evan Waters. More broadly, I would say to review, just for your own protection / just want to understand where the university currently lies on these issues. Both review the Board of Governors rules about this, and also the General Counsel has a First Amendment website. It hasn't been brought to my attention that those two things seem to be in tension, potentially, but also I am not an attorney. So, but I would say kind of if you're worried about sort of where you stand or what people you work with stand on these kinds of concerns, I would say definitely do review first and foremost the Board of Governors rules about faculty speech and academic freedom tied to the classroom. And then also do look at the First Amendment website for the General Counsel's office. I forget exactly how to, I think probably just put that in the Google bar, you probably get that. And then, yeah, at least for now, I would say if there's a kind of crisis situation, do contact Evan Wooders. Beyond that, I mean, the Provost Office is aware of this as a concern. I think part of the problem, again, I don't mean to speak for them. Obviously, they could do it themselves. Is that we're between people right now, and it's a little. There's a number of things that are getting slowed down until we have the new provost. But the people who work in that office are very well aware of some of these concerns. But also, I think there's an understandable point of view of like it's not our place to act until we have the next provost, really oversee this kind of issue. But thank you for sharing that today, now. Are there any other items of new business? So I got a text from President Benson to remind you all, he feels very badly that he did not remind you all about the reception later today at Blaney House. So if you would like to go to have a treat over there, please do that a little bit later on this evening. And otherwise, I wish you the best of luck finishing your semesters. And we'll see you all in January. Thank you.